Hello friends, and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be something I've actually never done on my channel before. I see people do them all the time and I think they're really interesting. You all can let me know if you enjoy these types of videos or not. This could, be a one-time thing and then I never do it again if we don't like it, or if, you all enjoy it, I'll try to do them more frequently. This is going to be a mid-year reading check-in. I know a lot of people are doing the mid-year freak-out tag, and I was going to do that, but I wanted to do more like of a check-in because if you remember, I did make a video at the beginning of the year. I believe it was in January. I don't remember, to be honest. It's been a really long time, at least it feels like a really long time. But I made a video where I talked about 22 books I want to read in 2022, and I thought it'd be fun to update you all on my progress with that. How many books have I read? Talk about which ones I've enjoyed, which ones I haven't, and just that kind of thing. So I'll link that video down below if you haven't seen it, if you want to know like the full list or whatever. But also I wanted to go through my story graph and kind of look at my stats for 2022 so far, just because I think it's fun. I personally think it's a lot of fun to know like what everyone's reading stats are. Also, I just hit a reading goal of mine, at least on like Goodreads and stuff. So I thought this was like the perfect time to do a little check-in and just kind of my own little version of a mid-year reading check-in, because I don't know if this is like a proper mid-year check-in. This is just like what I'm doing. I don't know. It'll probably be chaotic because it's me, so I don't know how like cohesive this will be, but just kind of my version of it. So yeah, I thought it would be fun and just kind of interesting to see where I'm at, since it is July now and we are halfway through 2022, which is just absolutely bonkers, just wild, so weird. But yeah, so I guess let's get into it, and hopefully this is not a chaotic mess. So, as of right now, I have read 11 of the 22 books from my 22 books list thing, which is half, which I'm actually very proud of. I will be honest and say that I did squeeze in a few before this video because I was trying to get to 11. So, I wasn't being super good about following this list. I kind of forgot that I was doing it until like a month ago, and then I realized, oh yeah, I should probably check to see how many of those I've hit, and then I realized I haven't hit that many, so I've been trying to be better about that list that I made. So I'll be honest, I have squeezed in a few in the last 48 hours, but I've hit 11 books, so I think that's great. So the books that I'm about to show you, they are not in the order of how I read them. They're in the order of how I showed them in the video that I'm talking about, that I made in January, because that's how I wrote down my list and that's how I've checked them off. Just to let you know, so that way you don't get confused, because some of my more recently read ones will probably appear before the ones that I read first, so just so no one gets confused. So one of the 11 books that I have read so far is Zombie by Joyce Carol Oates. So I actually read this last month. This was a 2-star read for me. I thought it was super boring and I did not care for it. If you want to know more about my feelings, you can check my wrap-up, because I'm not going to spend too long on these books, just because I've already talked about them for the most part. But yeah, I was not a fan of this one, so unfortunately this was a 2-star, so kind of disappointing, but I am glad that I got to check it off my list and that I ended up actually reading it. Next up is kind of, I didn't really get to check it off my list, but it is now off the list because I ended up DNFing it, so I am including it because it was it's in the list, but that is The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. I just didn't feel comfortable with this book. I didn't want to continue reading it. It was not for me. I am not the target audience for this book. This book was not for me. I did not feel comfortable while reading it. I did not make it very far and I just decided to DNF for my own sake. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I attempted it. I'm glad I tried it. I'm glad I included it in my list. I would have never, you know, known. So I'm glad that I gave it a fair shot and learned that it just wasn't for me. Next up is Rosemary's Baby. So, fun fact, this is one of the books that I just squeezed in. I actually read it last night, so I just finished it. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I am going to include this in my wrap-up, but I'm very pleasantly surprised by this classic horror novel. I'm not too big a fan of the classics just because I feel like they go over my head a lot of the time and they're just not meant for me. But yeah, pleasantly surprised. You'll know more about my thoughts in my July wrap-up, but yeah, I did finish Rosemary's Baby. Next is Penance by Kane Minato. I included this one because Confessions is one of my favorite books of all time. I think it is absolute perfection. I will recommend it to everyone I meet. I will never stop talking about it. I love that book with my whole heart, soul, being, everything. So I included this one because I was putting it off because of how much I loved Confessions, and you know, I just wanted to see what it was like, but I really enjoyed this one. It's not Confessions, but next up on the list that I got to check off is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I read this in January. It is now an all-time favorite thriller. It's worth the hype. I absolutely love it. I'm obsessed with it. It made such a lasting impression, and I am so glad I included it on my 22 books for 2022. Next up is another book that I actually read at the beginning of this month, and it is I Remember You by, oh my gosh, every time I try to say this author's name, Yrsa Sigurðardóttir. I know it sounds very bad when I say it like that, and I'm so sorry. I'm thankful that they put the pronunciation on the back, but every time I try to pronounce it with the pronunciation, I feel like it sounds worse because I'm going so slow. Yrsa Sigurðardóttir. I'm so sorry. I just read this month, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I really liked it. Also, very glad that I included it on my 22 book list. Next up, A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. I read this last month. It is a sapphic reimagining of Dracula from Dracula's bride's perspective, and I was super impressed by this book. Again, I put a lot of books on this list that I was putting off or intimidated by or nervous about, and I'm glad that this one lived up to the hype. I'm glad that it was as good as everyone says it is. The Good House by Tananarive Due. We already know this is one of my favorite books of the year so far. This made it into my, I think the video I just did was the best books of 2022 so far, or something like that. This was included in it. I absolutely love this. It's an amazing haunted house story. I will never not recommend this book. It is so amazing. I put it off because of the size. I'm glad I put it on this list because it was so worth it. Next up, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. So again, I actually just read this yesterday. I am not going to talk too much about it, but I put it on this list because I was putting it off because people were giving it bad reviews, and I have some opinions on it. Again, really glad that I put it on the list because it was a book that I was putting off, and now I can just check it off that list, and it felt really good to get it done. The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. I also read this last month, and it was a disappointing read, unfortunately. The first half was amazing, the second half was not, and I had put it off. I had put off reading it because I was nervous by the reviews, and unfortunately the reviews were, you know, correct for me at least. I did agree with them, but you know, I'm glad I gave it a chance because you never know sometimes. Sometimes books that get really bad reviews end up being an all-time favorite. So I was really hoping that this one was going to work out for me. But it just wasn't my favorite. It wasn't for me. It just wasn't my kind of book. But I am glad I gave it a chance, and I'm glad I included it in the list. And the last book that I have read on this list is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I actually really enjoyed this Riley Sager. I gave it 4.5, I believe. It was really surprising to me because the whole time I was angry that it was going in one direction, and then the ending, that twist, threw me for a loop, and I was very happy with the way it ended up going. I know a lot of people didn't like the twist. I personally loved this twist, and it's definitely one of my favorite Riley Sagers. I would say it's probably second place now after Final Girls. So I'm very happy that I ended up giving this one a read. There you have it. Those are the 11 of the 22 books that I've read so far, and honestly, I'm really happy with how this list is progressing because so far I've only had how many? 1, 2, 3 books on the list. The three out of the 11 that I've read on this list I didn't end up liking, but the others I actually was really pleasantly surprised by and I've enjoyed. So, you know, that's saying a lot. Like, I'm actually pretty impressed so far. I'm really happy with how this list is coming, you know, together and how the books are turning out. I'm glad I ended up doing this. I was a little nervous at first, but I'm pretty happy with that. That's how I've been progressing on my 22 books. Now let's get into some reading stats. I'm looking on my Storygraph because I like the way that they do their stats. I think they're very interesting. But I have actually hit my reading goal for the year. I set my reading goal to read 100 books, and I have actually hit that. So I've read 100 books so far this year, which is insane. So many books. So many books. On my Storygraph it says I've only read 99, and that's because one of the books isn't on Storygraph because it's an indie published book. And then on Goodreads it says I've read 102 because I've had 2 DNFs this year, and yeah, it included those. So I've read 99 books on Storygraph, it says, and 32,134 pages, which is actually insane. That is a lot of pages. And for my moods, there's a little pie chart. I'll have like pictures inserted so you can see them. But for my moods, my biggest moods are dark, mysterious, and tense. Yep. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. But the rest of the moods are emotional, lighthearted, reflective, adventurous, funny, challenging, informative, relaxing, inspiring, and hopeful. Aw, that's kind of cute. Aw. I like how the really like big like ones are the really like dark ones, and then the small ones are like all like relaxing, hopeful. It's all those romances I read in what was it, April? That was probably evened that out a little bit. For my pacing, it says 45% fast, 46% medium, and 9% slow. Sounds about right. I prefer my books to read very fast. But if not, I guess medium is okay, and slow is my least favorite. So that sounds about right. Page number, 69% between 300 and 499. Yep, that sounds about right. I don't like to read over 500 page books. Less than 300 is 29%, and 500 plus is 2%. You can really tell what I prefer when you look at these stats, and they make me laugh. It really makes me laugh. Fiction versus nonfiction. I've read 99% fiction and only 1% nonfiction. I know the nonfiction was actually Junji Ito's cat diary manga about his cats. That's the only nonfiction because I don't read nonfiction. I don't really care for it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then for genres, it pretty much looks at all the genres I read, but I'll give you my top 10 from the looks of it. My top 10 are thriller, horror, mystery, manga, contemporary, romance, young adult, crime, LGBTQIA+, and short stories. It also includes the rest of them below that, but they look like I've only read like a few of those, so I'm just showing you like the top 10 it looks like, which actually makes a lot of sense. Thriller and horror are pretty neck and neck, but thriller is kind of beating horror right now, but I guess that kind of makes sense. So yeah, it's interesting to see my genres split up like that. I don't know, it's just very interesting to me, I guess. I don't know, I just, I don't really think about it that much because I just lump everything into either thriller, horror, or romance that I read, so it's very interesting to see it split up like that. And then for formatting, I read 88% print and 12% digital. That sounds about right because I only either read on my Kindle or physically. And then this is probably my favorite part of the stats, just because I think it is so cute that it's included, but it's your most read authors, and I really like mine. Junji Ito is actually in first place, and that is because in January I read all of the rest of the work that I had of his left. Darcy Coates is at the bottom, and that's because I've only read 2 of her books this year because she's only had 2 books come out so far this year. It will be 3 once her last book comes out this year, but I think it's funny that she's at the bottom. The other authors included in this little chart is Riley Sager, Kay Sonbay, Tessa Bailey, Karen Slaughter, Tiffany D. Jackson, Jennifer McMahon, Lucy Foley, and Simone St. James. So that is very interesting to me. I don't know. I like seeing your most read authors. I just think that's a lot of fun. I think that's a cute chart that Storygraph has. The other one that I think is very interesting is for my average rating, and my average rating this year so far is a 3.94 star rating, which is actually, I feel like, kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of high, but it's also kind of middle, you know? Yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting. I will say though, in this chart, it shows that I give 4 stars the most out, and then 5 stars. I always make fun of the fact that I'm very lenient with my 5-star ratings, and I feel like this chart definitely shows that I give 5 stars out quite a bit. I don't know, I just think it's fun to look through those charts and those graphs and just kind of see where I'm at stats wise for the year. But yeah, I feel pretty good about this year, my reading so far. Like I said, I've hit 100 books, which is insane. I've read 11 of the 22 books on my list. I only have 11 more, and I feel like it feels very doable. It feels like I'm actually hitting my reading goals this year. And I don't typically like to make too many reading goals just because I don't like to put too much pressure on myself when I read. I like to keep my reading fun and just for entertainment, and you know, I don't like to put too much like stress on my reading, just because then it doesn't get as fun and I lose interest and I'll probably become very slumpy and I won't get any reading done for the month, and you know, I just don't like to put too much pressure. Reading is fun, it's enjoyable for me, and I don't like to put stress on things that I take enjoyment in. But I do like looking at this stuff because it is satisfying. It does make me feel productive in a way and feels like I'm making really good, I don't know, strides in my goals and like my wants for reading this year. It does feel nice to see some success, even if it is just like my reading goals for the year. It just feels a little bit more, I don't know, it's like a nice feeling. It just makes me feel good. So I thought it would be fun to just show where I'm at this year. I've already made a video on my favorite books that I've read so far in 2022. Obviously I've read more books that I've really liked that could be favorites. I'll link that in case you want to see that. Maybe I'll do a least favorite books of 2022 so far, maybe. We'll see. I don't know, we'll see. You can let me know if you want to see that. I just wanted to do a little check-in and see where I'm at and see if you all enjoy something like this. It's not my typical style. It's a little bit more like statistics based, which, you know, we all know I'm not really like a stats person. I just kind of go with the flow with reading, but I thought it was interesting. I thought it was fun, and I just kind of wanted to see where I'm at for the year and give a little update, maybe so I can look back on this and just, I don't know, see. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it more for me than I am for any of you, but hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please let me know in the comments down below and give me a thumbs up. That way I know that you enjoyed it, and I can maybe do these videos in the future, or, you know, something similar to this. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to my channel. We can become friends, talk about reading goals, books, scary books, disturbing books, romance books, manga, all kinds of fun stuff. And I hope you are having a great day, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!